Newent. Newent is a small market town 7.5 miles or 12 kilometres to the northwest of Gloucester. It sits in a shallow bowl of Bromsgrove sandstone with alluvial deposits lying alongside Peacock's Brook. The brook flows through the town from southwest to northeast and into the Elle Brook. There are mixed farming areas in the low-lying vales to the south and east of the town. To the north, northeast and west are higher ground and woodland. Newent has a long history dating back to the prehistoric and Roman periods. By the 9th century there was an important church here, probably a minster, which would have had an associated settlement. Following the Norman conquest, the royal manor of Newent was granted to the Abbey of Cormelles, which established a priory. Market rights were granted in the 13th century, and the town developed on an irregular plan, with New Street, now High Street, and Lux Lane, now Culver Street, recorded as early as 1300, and Church Street from 1368. It runs parallel to Peacock's Brook, which flows not far to the northwest. Markets and fairs took place in the town, and crafts and trades developed. In the 16th, 17th and 18th centuries, various industries such as glass-making, coal mining, iron-making, quarrying of stone and lime, charcoal burning and brick-making grew up around the town. Some were facilitated by the building of the canal, followed by the railway, both now closed.
We found a number of timber frame buildings. We knew that if you drive through Newent, you'll see the fronts of a number of them. Not many, and again, a lot of them are covered up by later facades. But what we've got now is 8 tree ring dated buildings in Newent, an area which had no dating before. And we've got a small market town. We've got a picture of most of the buildings sort of appearing between 1490 up to around the Elizabethan flowering about 1570. So we got a picture of development there. We can see changes in construction technique in a little parochial separate town. So it's useful for us. We've got 8 buildings there to compare it and contrast it with the bigger places, Gloucester that we're looking at, and Tewkesbury, to see if these trends do go out to the country, and that's why we picked these 3 places.
The historic core of Newent is largely based on the medieval street plan defined by Burgage plots. The town has a broad representation of timber-framed buildings, and the exposed examples exhibit excellent period details and ornamentation. Previous to the Gloucestershire Dendrochronology Project, no buildings had been tree-ring dated in Newent. One possible very early cruck building survives at No. 5 Culver Street. A later cruck at Lothlorien dates to 1564. Good examples of buildings with curved wall braces and jettying are visible at 25 to 27 Church Street, dated between 1446 and 1476, and 32 Church Street, dated to 1417. While good examples of the later use of straight wall braces can be seen at the Market House, which documentary evidence indicates dates to 1668, and the side wing of the Black Dog Inn, which dates to 1630. An example of decorative framing can be seen at 31 to 33 Broad Street, which dates to 1581.
We've got 8 buildings dated now in Newent, which we're incredibly happy with. One of the important ones we're talking about the Elizabethan flowering around 1580, where you get all these beautiful decorative panels, small panels. You can have them either curved or circular, or in some cases you get a herringbone pattern. And the rest of the country, all of this happens around 1580, and slap bang in the middle of Newent High Street you have herringbone pattern panelling, and the date for it is pretty much spot on, 1580. It's exciting. We understand now that all the patterns and the traditions are going out to the country as well, in Gloucester and in our example.
Many timber frame survivors are also concealed behind later brick frontages. Both Booth Hall at 1 Broad Street and Toad Hall opposite the famous marketplace have been identified as particularly important hidden medieval survivors. Toad Hall has now been dated to 1590.
The first buildings I went into in Newent, I've got to admit, I didn't really recognise it for what it was, but no one's seen it before. Stops are an elaborate chamfer you have along beams, and where they come to the end you can have elaborations, and there's lots of different examples that we're aware of, and the trend is it tends to be a straight chamfer stop, and then later it'll go curved, and then you'll get a nice S shape, and that progresses through time. We're aware of this in other areas and we understand that, and we were looking to see if this progression holds true in our 3 areas, Gloucester, Tewkesbury and Newent. In Newent we came across this incredibly long chamfer, literally this long, about a foot, going from, it's almost like a pyramid, a very long pyramid sharp thing, and it looks exactly like a spear. It's a long spear, so we've called it a spear stop. And we found this in one building, didn't really think much of it. Then we found it in a second building, and then a third. And it's not just a spear of that length. Over time, we were looking at later buildings that we found, they elaborate on it. So in one example, they put a big ball, like a golf ball at the beginning. In another, you've got a big roll stop at the end. So this spear stop is what we're calling it, possibly the Newent spear stop. We've not found anywhere else. It seems unique to Newent, and it seems to be used over a long period of time and progress and change with other fashions that we're aware of around the rest of the country, but they have based on their spear.
That is a very interesting observation, because, you know, of the nearby towns you'd expect to find similar details, but it's clear that somewhere like a small town like Newent may have had its own distinct carpentry traditions, and it may have been rather proud of them, it may have kept hold of them, it may have insisted on using them. So either this is because there was a family or an atelier of carpenters who liked this detail, or because people thought, this is the Newent style and it's the style I want. So down in Devon, there's distinct carpentry traditions for Exeter, Plymouth and Barnstaple. They do things differently in these places. So it may be that each town had its own distinct styles and manners of building. And the kind of project that Andy has been doing, where you cover a wide area, you cover several different settlements in a county, allows us to establish the existence of these different local traditions that you might not otherwise notice. And so that is a fabulous piece of progress.